Hi. Thanks to you guys, starting yesterday, I have quit trying to change the rest of the world. My question that I'd like to...
You will feel so much better for it.
I'm sure. I already do.
And the world will do exactly what it was going to do anyway.
My question is on how do you guys see the aging process and its effect on the physical selves, such as myself, and as opposed to illness. I mean, I think I recognize what illness is and why.
Yes.
Even though I carry some with me. But I'd like to know your whole look at aging process.
Well, we call it cycling. We call it evolving. We call it changing. And at its basis is an understanding that new perspectives are extremely beneficial in all things, even cells. And when you think in terms of the evolution or change or age, not as something that is detrimental, but something that is logical in terms of continually refreshing. In other words, you never came forth into a body, no one comes forth into anything that is physical, intending to remain in that one form constantly, because there is a reinfusing of physical matter with non-physical energy, which causes the eternalness, which is so much the bigger picture. So we're sort of answering your question from all perspectives at the same time. We'll slow down and do it one at a time. From your physical perspective, if we view aging in the physical format, if we were standing in your physical terms, in your physical perspective and viewing it, we would see it as the natural changing. In other words, we would think of physical bodies in the same way that we think of a fruit tree, or in the same way that we think of any plant or anything that is physical. Give us more about your question.
Well, there are those of us who age more quickly than others. And is there some particular... In other words, why should someone become an old man and look like a very old man at a certain age, and another person be 30 or 40 years older and still not even look that old? I mean, to be very...
Well, now you're talking about something other than moving through time. When you're speaking of aging, we want to talk about aging and maturing and moving through time in one sense. And illness and what you are talking about as being something else, which is more or less resistance. Mm-hmm. In other words, the more you allow the energy to flow through you, the more you thrive no matter what the age. The more resistance that you establish, and therefore the less allowing of the free-flowing life to flow, then the more the declining process occurs. But we agree with you. We don't like to couple declining and aging, because aging, from our viewpoint, is moving through time. Declining is resistant-based always. But we also want to say that we do not see of course, there's the birth process, and then there is the maturing process, and then there is the death process. We don't see the death process as a declining process either. Do you?
That's true. I don't think I do. No. That's true. But it is disturbing to me that age is considered in such a way, in such a light.
It is detrimental.
We're taught that.
We agree. It is detrimental.
Yeah, we're taught that.
And yet you can play with it a little bit. In other words, we don't hear many of you at the age of 20 wishing you were 6.
True.
And so there is some benefit to the aging process. And then different ones of you at different times declare the age inappropriate. In other words, some of you start your downhill slide at 20 and some at 30. And there are some civilizations that take great pride in how old they can become, because in age comes wisdom and maybe even more respect and that sort of thing. Although that is becoming less and less on your planet today.
Do you think that by eliminating a lot of the negative things within our own thinking system, that this can help the so-called decline
Certainly.
that may occur.
In other words, as you make a decision that nothing is more important than that you feel good, and you really mean it, and you start choosing your television programs based on how they make you feel, and your movies, and your conversations with friends, and the people you spend time with, and even the things you remember, and the things you contemplate, and the things you do, as you start caring about the way you feel, so that you start choosing things that cause less resistance within you as you ponder them, your physical apparatus begins to thrive, and you're now, even though you're moving through time, shows it. We would encourage that, and one other thing. We would encourage you to forget your age. We really would, and
Gladly.
because there are so many things that in your society are associated with certain ages.
Yes.
And in the same way as we were talking earlier, that you can pick up the influence from your mother's opinions even while you were in the womb, you pick up all kinds of influences, vibrational influences, from the opinions of those who surround you, especially your doctors, as they conclude from their statistics or gathering of information from you. In other words, they tend to put you in clumps and expect similar things from you. And so the question is, were we as a society actually free from the influence of each other and having natural response to moving through time, which then the doctors observed and cataloged, and we are not laying it at the doctor's door, but they do tend to keep track of that. And then, in other words, are you getting the sense of what we're getting at? Is my decline natural and statistics are just being made of it? Or is the fact that the statistics are being gathered perpetuating the decline? And this is a question that students of deliberate creation are asking all the time. Jerry and Esther play with each other every day about that. Did I create that situation through my expectation of it, or did I come to expect it because that is the way things are turning out? And we say every single time, no matter what, even though all kinds of things happen that you then begin to expect, and you are justified in your expectation of them because they are happening, just the same, it is that expectation that is the perpetuation, you see. Now, let's turn this around in a very positive way. The life expectancy of humans, it has increased tremendously since 100 years ago. The life expectancy 100 years ago, according to the piece of propaganda that Jerry presented to Esther yesterday, was 47 years old. The average expectancy. Esther said, well, I'm almost there. So what we're wanting to say to you is you get to decide everything. And the more steeped you are in what society thinks or what statistics say, the harder it is for you to decide for yourself and therefore create something that is different. And that's why the statistics tend to bear out what they are prophesying, because people usually don't think far beyond what they're seeing. But you can.
Okay. Well, how old are you, Abraham?
Older than dirt.
Good.
But we want you to know you are too. In other words, we are timeless. We are consciousness. We are energy that has been around for longer than time. See.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you very much. The path that I am currently on allows me during ritual and ceremony, at times during my sitting practice, and at certain times during my daily flow, to be able to receive a term that is used by Abraham, a vibration, or what I would call a communication or a connection, or a seeing or feeling of the non-physical. I find that these times are incredible, and the space is filled with a supreme wow factor, a natural high, a space where at times I can transcend my own physical space. I feel an energy push, a connection is made, and an answer is received. If I want to hear the answers to and understand the connections that are given to me, how do I develop the ability to understand the spirit language? I want to deliberately create a higher connection to the spiritual, non-physical world. And I would like to learn how I can do that more directly.
Do you feel at this time that language such as what we are exchanging here is the highest form of interaction with spirit?
No. By our looks to each other all day, I could say definitely no.
So what communication are you reaching for? what form do you want it to take? This highest form that you are reaching for?
I'm not expecting a form. What I would like to deliberately create is a more continued relationship.
Well, the reason that we're asking here is because this connection that you are describing and that you know, as we are hearing your words, we're feeling the knowledge that is within you. In other words, you're not speculating or hoping for something. You're having these experiences and are wanting more of them. And what we want to convey to you is that the most powerful way of perpetuating something that you want is to recall the experience of it, or find the feeling place of it, or appreciate the fact that it is happening.
Correct.
And the reason that we ask the question about the communication, when it's happening, do you hear words?
No.
And are you reaching for that?
No.
What is it that you want? Feeling?
Again, a understanding of the connection that I'm getting. I'm not understanding why I'm receiving them at times.
Well, you are always connected to this source energy. And in fact, the question that we would rather hear from you is, why are there moments when I'm not doing that? Because it's really natural that you would be focused in something that is important to you and feel the infusion of that broader perspective flowing through. So help us to understand, through use of some words, how you think that this greater knowledge would play out in your experience. In other words...
Oh, well, that's part of something I didn't read to you. The purpose would be to share that with others in an altruistic fashion.
And how does it manifest in your experience before you share it?
I didn't understand that question.
Well, the reason that we're having trouble communicating here, and we are actually enjoying the demonstration of this, is because what is non-physical is purely vibration.
Correct.
What's happening here is physical translation of vibration on both parts. In other words, you are receiving and translating. Esther is receiving and translating. A lot of you are receiving and translating. And then you have dialogue, which often is exhibited as more advanced communication when it is not necessarily so. And let us start in another place here. Sometimes people will say to Esther, or about Esther, how nice it is that she is able to receive unconsciously a block of thought and then somehow make sense of it in physical terms. And we call that interpreting vibration, and we agree, we think it is a nice thing. But then we always add, all of our physical friends are interpreting vibration all the time. You do it so much you don't even realize that you're doing it. Everything that you are experiencing through your physical senses is vibrational interpretation. And the reality that you are so in agreement upon just means that your ability to interpret is so similar that you have fashioned this platform of similarity that you call time-space reality on planet Earth. Now, you are understanding that you are an extension of so much more, and through your meditation and through your relaxing your point of focus from this physical environment, you are actually connecting in a very real and very powerful way with that broader perspective. But the discomfort for you comes in you want to take that pure energy that you feel and sense and know and translate it into something meaningful. But the trouble that you're having is it feels to us that you are not as certain that what is physical is as worthy of the energy as the energy itself. So you're sort of disallowing the full communication. So what we want to say to you is that everything that is physical is spiritual in nature. Everything that you are, everything even that you feel, is as a result of this broader consciousness that is flowing through you. And as you relax a little bit and try not so hard to make the distinction between what's physical and what's non-physical, it is our expectation that the blending that has already begun will occur in a way that will be very meaningful to you.